Hey, okay. I am so glad I am not talking to myself tonight. I was a little bit worried because it's obviously Super Bowl Sunday. So my husband thought I was a complete idiot for trying to do this tonight. And I probably am, but I'm so glad to see some of your familiar faces. I'm actually thrilled. Yay. Oh, I'm so excited. That is awesome. I thought that there might be some ladies who would want a little reprieve or at least an excuse to take a quick break from the Super Bowl chaos and parties and pregame and all that other stuff. So I'm so glad you're here. I know I say this every week, but I really am going to try to do this. I really am going to try to be short tonight because I've been told again by my husband that I absolutely cannot talk forever on Super Bowl Sunday, that you all have to get out and watch the game. And so therefore, I won't. And I know I say that every week. It's always a fine-tuned balance between questions and comments and topic. But since I don't have a topic and we're going to just jump right in with stuff that are questions and live as it comes in, plus the stuff I've pulled and harvested from past lives that I didn't get to talk about or that got lost under the carpet, some really awesome little gems that I was able to go back and through and find. So all of that's going to be the focus of what few of us are able to come here tonight together to talk about. So I'm so glad I see Helen and Aletta, and I saw Tara and Amy and Lauren, who's the first one in, Catherine, Angie. That is awesome. You guys must have very nice husbands who don't force you to sit down right next to them and watch the Super Bowl. I'm actually in my bedroom right now because I was relegated out here. I couldn't even be in the dining room because you could still hear the Super Bowl and you might hear him scream. So, well, not yet because it's the pregame. So anyway, I'm in here, but I'm so glad that you guys are too. Oh, great. Yes, I thought you were saying you were at the Title One. Thank you. The Title One conference was amazing. I always love to go to that conference because those teachers to me are those teachers and administrators. You know, we all know if we work in Title One schools, we've got our work cut out for us, and we do a lot ourselves, and our kids depend on us. And sometimes they depend on us more than a lot of other folks that they can, depend on at home, or if there is a home. There's just a lot, and they've merged with ESEA, which is they kind of umbrella all of the other title funding. So we've got kids with the trauma-based learning needs and homeless populations, just a whole lot more than just the academic socioeconomic focus. So all of that to say, those are my favorite groups to teach to or to talk to and to learn from, because I know that what they take and run with is going to go straight into the kids who really need it the most. And there were, I would say, the session room had about 500. The video clip I posted, if you saw it on Facebook, I didn't take that, but someone did, which was awesome. And that was before it started. So that was about 15, 20 minutes early, which was amazing, because that means by the time that 500 ballroom plus was filled up, we had people on the floors. I mean, teachers were squashed together, even though no one wants to sit, kind of penned into those big, gigantic, long rows. But they were just such a great group. And we went, and it was just awesome. So I'll be posting that as soon as I get that video clip. I'll say it's one of the best conferences I've ever done. Oh, it's always a great conference, but I did a really good job this time. And by really good, I mean, I kept it brief, which is so hard for me. I covered so much, and I really kind of concentrated into little A-bombs of concepts. I think talking to you all every week really helps because, you pull a lot of things in, and everything I say, I then learn even more from. So I was very conscious of the focus of where I wanted to go, what the main points needed to be. And I also revised the gigantic packet download that some of you may not have. So I'm going to post that link in the description. If you have it, you do have an old one. I try to revise it at least. I'm constantly playing with it, but I do a huge overhaul at least, every few months. And I did a tremendously big overhaul on it this time. So it is you can always find it on the Secret Story website, get the most updated version. If you look at where it says workshops on thesecretstories.com, the workshop tab, if you pull that drop down menu down, you'll see the handout packet, and it will let you download it. But it's well worth downloading this time. And I will make sure to post a link to it in this description as well. And then that will be perfect when video gets up, because you'll be able to follow right along as if you were there. And by the way, because the Title I conference, I'm assuming we might have some folks join in from that. Had it not been Super Bowl Sunday, I would have expected an influx of just a ton of them because they were tremendous. And several of them, I mean, it was just like a big mass of folks at the end. And we were talking and we had that time because the ballroom didn't have to turn over. I don't think we put it together that it was Super Bowl Sunday, but this was going to be my kind of pull together for questions and answers. So if anyone is on here from Super Bowl or from a Title and you didn't know there was a big handout download packet because you were part of the group trying to get into the room once session started, I wanted you to know as well. And again, the link will be here. There is a giant handout packet. So if you missed that or you didn't even know there was one, you'll have access to it. And thank you for joining us. Okay, before I get officially started, I'm going to look and see if you have questions right now because yours take priority over the ones that I've pulled from other lives. And I'm going to be reaching and grabbing a few things as we go. So just expect to get a little motion sick possibly because I have things scattered all around me on the floor. So if you have questions right now or things that you want to ask or share or have me mention, let me know because you're the priority. And then after that, I'm going to hit the stuff that you focused on in the last few lives. And then some other things that I think are always questions like show me every single poster so I can gauge the size and compare what's what because I don't know which one to start with or which one to get. And I know it is really hard to see the differences, you know, on a site. So I thought that's one thing can use some time for. Okay. Oh, that's so sweet, Amy. That's so nice. I don't really like the Super Bowl, so it's really not a big sacrifice for me to not be over there. But I especially don't like it since last year the Title I conference was in Philadelphia, and I got trapped there because of the parade that was going on. And Philadelphia folks are a little insane when they win the Super Bowl and have their parade. So it was kind of traumatizing for me. So kind of made me not want to be wherever the Super Bowl was. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if I have actual questions. A lot of you guys are just the expert, you know, group. So you're the ones that actually are answering questions really well as I was going through the old lives. So I'm not expecting you guys in general to have many questions. I teach first grade. I'm the first in my school to use this method. Okay. Hi, Catherine. How young is too young? Would it be appropriate for pre-K through 5 or wait for kinder? No, start it right off the bat. I would start, if you sing a secret, sing the Secrets alphabet song. As soon as you would start singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's when you can start singing the better alphabet. So there's absolutely no difference. As soon as you start telling stories, tell a secret story. I will say that it's not really, the stories are going to be more of use and more interesting when the kids have sung that better alphabet song, because what that does is it sets or primes them to expect certain things. Like if you tell kids you can have candy every day at lunch, they know, even if they're 4 or 3, that they're supposed to get candy every day at lunch. So if you start priming with that better alphabet song, they start to expect that things make sense. So when you're telling them, you know, T says, and then every time they're looking at a book at nighttime when you're reading a bedtime story, or if you're their teacher, every time you're looking at a calendar or the lunch menu or whatever you've written on the board, or if you're holding up a big book, they're going to see the letter that they darn well expect to do something because they've been doing the better alphabet song and it isn't doing it. And that's the best and most fun time to tell secrets, because that's when kids already know enough to know something's not right. And a lot of pre-K teachers will tell me, well, my kids wouldn't know something's not right because they don't know what is right. That's because they're not getting that fast track access to those individual letters and sounds. Kids don't get every individual letter and sound in pre-K in the first 2 weeks to 2 months. They just don't. So since they can with muscle memory, that knowledge is what's going to trigger or prompt the need to know more. You have no need to know more if you don't know anything. So ignorance is bliss. You don't know what you don't know if you don't know it. So that's really the key. That's what kickstarts everything. And because you can start singing as early as you start singing anything, let that be the way to kick the ball off. And then either let those questions come organically that are going to lead you right into telling a secret, like that TH secret, which I actually happen to have right here. Like that TH secret, that's a great time to let them know why that T isn't saying tss. It's like letting them know why they're not getting candy today at snack time when they expect it. So it helps to tell them the things that aren't doing what they should once they have their bearings with what it should do. So I wouldn't be in a rush to necessarily tell the stories in pre-K. You certainly can when you are contradicting yourself. Actually, I take that back at 4, like before pre-K. when they're, younger than a classroom age. I wouldn't be in a hurry to tell the secrets, just sing the song, but let them and their questions lead to the secrets. If you teach in pre-K, you are doing the calendar, you are looking at books, you are reading site, you're doing everything that kinder does, just without the expectation, which actually is perfect because that's what secrets are. It's all play-based learning and no expectation that's specific. You're giving them fast track access, so you're ahead of the game, not behind. So your expectation can relax a little bit. So for that reason, in pre-K, go ahead and tell the secrets. Tell the secrets every time you're pointing to something that isn't doing what it should. And I know I'm spending a few minutes on this, but it's only because this is actually something I had on my list tonight as well. When pre-K teachers say, I don't need to tell, let's say like the TH secret, because they don't really know the T. As you're singing that song and they're learning the T and you're looking at the calendar with the word Thursday, you're doing the opposite of what you're telling them to do. So that's a perfect opportunity to toss out a secret, because the alternative is you're just not making any sense and you're just going to let them deal with that. So if any kid is paying attention, is kind of letting their wheels spin, and you won't know it because it's a buffet. So you won't know who's picked up the chicken salad and taken a taste. Some kid might know that T is supposed to say T. And so he is wondering what in the heck's going on when you're pointing to the word Thursday or the word the. So anytime you know that you are contradicting something you just said 5 seconds ago when that you did that Better Alphabet song, it might be good to tell a secret. Worst case scenario for the other kids, they hear a story. Best case scenario for the kids that are ready, they take that information in and it becomes new learning, and then you see it come right back out. And after that happens, you're on your own, because then it flies and you'll know exactly what to do. It's the hardest part's just getting that ball rolling and having the faith to just jump in and know that you can kind of start breathing underwater. Okay, I'm going to backtrack here. So hopefully that helps, Catherine, give you a little bit of insight there. And if you ever want to reach out to me, I can give you some good context for some amazing pre-K teachers that have just gone wild with what they've done, that really has rivaled and exceeded some of what some kinders do, that aren't using secrets, obviously, but that they're just flying right through curriculum that goes past where kinder's supposed to be. Download packet. Yeah, it's really, I spent so much time on it. So it's a real gold mine for you to take what you need, use what you want, flesh out what you're more interested in finding out about that you don't know if you haven't gone to a conference. And then it follows a great sequence. So you can really use it to even share things with your kids, with your parents, great video clips. It's like an organized clearinghouse of pretty much what's become so huge and unmanageable almost on YouTube and with all the blog posts. Looking forward to downloading. We see, you see the Super Bowl in Japan. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's so funny. That you can't see it in Japan, but you see the commercials. I had someone from Zimbabwe ask how to do the lives because they couldn't get on live. Apparently there are a lot of folks, and I see this with the views versus the folks on, that can't seem to manage getting onto it. I think they don't have a YouTube account. So they kind of just hover and read, which is great. Only problem is I just can't answer those questions live. Just found out about this program and Q&A through Facebook. Can you give me a rundown of the benefits of your program and the general approach? Anybody that's been watching these lives before knows that if I give you a rundown of it, the Super Bowl will be over probably by the time I finish doing that. I'll tell you what, by the time we're finished tonight, by the time we're even 10 minutes in, you will have a great perspective of how this is a completely backdoor approach from what you're used to seeing in the classroom. And I'll tell you what I mean by that as soon as I finish reading your question here. The general approach, I teach 2-3, but have readers as low as K1. Yeah, okay. And I'm sure, and there's so many gurus in this group here that they'll be shooting out answers to this throughout the whole time I'm talking. So thanks, Amy. Jennifer, the question you're asking, I love it. And it's really been like the focal point of what we've broken apart and chewed on in the last few lives, starting with, how to start, what we're tapping into, where that back door is, how we can accelerate what we need to do. But there was a post on Facebook that I saw today, and it was a teacher that was really frustrated, and it was a group, and I'm not active in the group at all, but she was talking about, and this is where it's interesting with your question, Jennifer. She was an early grade teacher, but she was chiming back and forth with a 3rd, 4th grade teacher who had kids reading at a early grade level, at a kindergarten, 1st grade level. And they were talking about the scope and sequence, the grade level scope and sequence for instruction. And that grade level scope and sequence for instruction held off so much of the code at the earliest grade level years, that the kids could barely read or write anything because they had nothing to read or write with. And that by the time then some of those kids that struggled with the sight word memorization and whatever bits and pieces of the skills were introduced along each grade level line, the kids that missed the boat and didn't catch the skills at the grade level they were supposed to were making their way up to grades like yours, third, fourth, etc., without the skills or the pieces of the code that are supposed to be divvied out for 3 to 4 grade level years from K to 3. So the secrets just leaves that whole mess behind, in that the reading series is your playground. You will have a reading series. You're always going to have a reading series. You want a reading series, or at least you want something for kids to play with reading and writing, a playground to use their reading and writing muscles or their skills, something to dive deep into and really dig into as a reader and a writer. But the reading series, whatever it may be, and that's part of what I'm going to be talking about as well tonight, because it goes with my questions. The reading series are introducing pieces of the code at delayed intervals. And kids need as much of the code as they can get as quickly as they can get it. So without going into too much detail about how we fast track it with secret stories, I'll tell you that we just skip a lot of extra steps in the dance because we dig into what kids already know, what kids already understand and do every day, the behavior, the social, emotional behaviors and connections. So as you're looking back through some of the old lives, or if you just jump on the website, thesecretstories.com, just that main webpage, the very first one that you see, kind of walks you through where we are, what doesn't make sense about kids waiting 3 to 4 years to access the code, and then how you can start to divvy it out in pre-K and in kindergarten so that kids have access to everything in kinder, but it's served on a buffet. So it's not waitress driven, it's buffet driven. And because it's going into something that they already understand, it's not new learning, you know. And one example of that, because I was going to touch on this anyway, as a matter of fact, it goes with one of the questions that I got asked, was Sneaky White. One of the questions that I wanted to mention before I see what you might have, one of the teachers said that they were catching flack from some upper grade teachers because they were teaching, well, originally, then it turned around, but originally they said, well, it really is, you shouldn't teach more than one sound for any letter. You know, just make sure kids have one letter sound for each letter, and that's it. So for instance, in the Better Alphabet song, they shouldn't know that C says k and s, or that G says g and j, or even really the A says a and a. Start with one, and then once they know that, then you can give them the next one. Now, my question would be, how are they going to know that? Because how are they going to use one letter without another? How are they going to know the a sound and get comfortable with that A can say "a" if they don't also know that A can say "a"? Because the only way you're going to get comfortable is to read it, and you can only read if you have enough of the code to read with. So I don't really know what the definition of "no" means, but to me, teaching one sound that a letter makes, or just focusing on one letter or one spelling pattern or one thing, one piece at a time, would be like just focusing on the number 3 and saying that you're not going to introduce the number 4 or even the number 2 until they know the number 3. How are you really going to know the number 3 other than in relation to the number 2 and number 4? So that's kind of how I see letters and sounds, and the ability to give that access to multiple sounds. My dog's wanting me to let her out. Izzy, I'm not going to, go lay down. Sorry. The ability to give kids access to the full dimension of what a letter can do is part of what the benefit is of digging into the social emotional centers. Kids know that other kids are multifaceted with their behavior. Kids know that Johnny sometimes pushes people, but he can also be the sweetest little thing in the world. And as soon as he gets angry, then he always feels bad and he cries. And they know that he brings Twinkies for lunch, and they know that he shares his Twinkies. But they also know that sometimes he says curse words in the classroom. So kids have this knowledge of these varied behaviors that this entity named Johnny, who they're familiar with, exhibits. And kids would happily engage in a dialogue with you all about Johnny. They would love to talk about Johnny. They probably talk about Johnny at the dinner table almost every single night to anybody that will listen. So, and they could not only just talk about Johnny, they could hypothesize his most likely behavior based on a given situation. For example, they could tell you that if Johnny were at the end of the line, that would probably not be smart. And they will probably tell your substitute this too, because that's when he's more likely to curse or kick or hit because he knows he can get away with it at the end of the line. Now, when he's at the beginning of a line, he usually is good Johnny. He does all the things that Johnny does when he's acting like a good boy, which is he's very quiet. He puts his finger like this, and he always looks so perfect that, we win a marble in our jar. So because kids can keep track of all of the behaviors of Johnny, and we are putting letters in the same places, which is this back part of the brain, this social, emotional, earlier developing center, kids can keep track of all the different things letters can do too, because they're not really thinking about letters. They're not thinking about sounds. They're thinking about behaviors and who makes them. So for this, and I know it looks backward right now, but they're thinking that this is sneaky. Why? He's sneaky. He is always going to be sneaky when he's at the end of a word, because that's when he's much less likely to get caught. Much less than when he's at the beginning of a word. When he's at the beginning of a word, he's going to do just what he should. He's going to stand up tall and straight and go, yeah, yes, you, yak, yeah, yeah, yeah. But when he's at the end, that's when he'll be sneaky. And that's when he'll be wearing the capes that he stole from Superhero E and Superhero I that he's not supposed to have. But he took them because he loves to use their power so that he can say their names. So the same decision-making process that kids use to decide where they are best able to be sneaky and where they shouldn't be sneaky drive their decision-making with text they've never seen. And it's a fascinating thing to watch these wheels turn in kids who you wouldn't think have wheels yet to turn. And I'm going to use a quick example that Amy shared with me because it's about this exact thing. And I think it'll also help drive the point home for people joining us who are new to this, who just need to wrap their head around for a second what we're talking about so they can make the most out of what we're going to be talking and answering. Amy was talking about, and I wish Amy could just take over right now and say this verbally, but she was talking about when I was at her school, she was telling me about a little girl, and this might have been the first time I met Amy, a little girl, and she was struggling to get her letters and sounds, and it was going into December. Actually, this was the first time I met Amy. She had gone to a reading conference, and I had done a keynote there, and then I did some follow-up breakout sessions, so we got to dig really deep. And I showed the Better Alphabet song. So this was not even December. This was October-ish. And so I think, was it October? No, I'm sorry. It was Thanksgiving. Amy could correct me because she's right here. It was just before Thanksgiving because they had 2 weeks of school left before the holiday break. So Amy came up to me after session, and I guess she even said, I'm going to try this with her. I don't know how it's going to work. She's only got like 6 letters. She's just not getting those letters and sounds. I don't even know if she had 6. She's just not getting them. Actually, maybe she had none. I want to say to Amy that said she had none because it was just like beating a dead horse as far as you're banging on that front door and no one's answering. So Amy, I happened to go to Amy's district for a PD in January, and she came up to me and she said, hi, I don't know if you remember me. She said, but I was at your conference and I started doing this Better Alphabet song and with this little girl. And she said, now this isn't the point of my story, but I want to tell you that she knew no letters or sounds. And after we did the Better Alphabet song, and we only had 2 weeks of school to do it, she had all of her individual letters and sounds. Or I think it was all. I don't know if she had, sneaky Y is the point. She had all of her individual letters and sounds. She said, but that isn't what's really neat. She said, that was what my goal was, or at least as the waitress, that's what I thought my goal was. I thought that was what I was delivering next. She said, but what was interesting is we were doing an assessment when I was doing the letter sound assessment. And when I pointed to the Y, she said, I don't know what that says. So she said, I was ready to mark a slash through it. And the little girl said, and this is just before Christmas, she said, but I do know that he's really sneaky. And I know that if he's in the end of the line and no one could see him, he'll always be sneaky. So he'll wear his ears eye cape. But if he's at the front of the line, he's got to be good, and he'll go, yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah. But I don't know what sound Y makes. Now, that's the power of a buffet. That's the power of the social emotional domain. That's the power of a story. And that's why we don't want to be a waitress. Because if we're a waitress and we think we know what they need, the code is a vast playing field. I mean, they need all of it. There's so many ins and outs of it. I've said this 1,000 times that if I want to write about my pet mouse, he'll be dead by the time I get the OUOW sound in 2nd grade because I bought him in kindergarten. I need that OUW sound now, and I'm not going to get that until a scope and sequence delivers it 2 years from now. So it's really hard for us to put ourselves in the gatekeeper of skills position. It's so much easier to make sure that we offer this constant, rich access to everything kids need throughout the day. And we can do it organically and naturally because we're working with the whole code throughout the day. We can't protect them from TH in pre-K, even though they're not going to get TH officially introduced until first grade. So we're constantly coming face to face with text where letters come together and never seem to make the sounds that the earliest grade learners expect them to. And we try to bring over that and hope they don't notice it. And then we memorize a whole lot of sight words to get around that fact. But that's a lot of extra wasted energy teaching the reading and not teaching the reader. What Amy did, and she didn't even do it on purpose, she did it by accident. She taught the reader because she happened to be telling a sneaky wise secret, probably for no reason that involved that little girl, because Amy's waitress radar was telling her she was working on D and K and S and P. But this little girl was along for the ride when someone in her class during whole group instruction or pullout was needing to hear about sneaky Y, maybe during the calendar when Y looks like he's lost his mind and says everything under the sun. So, and by the way, if you're new and you're wondering what about the A sound that Y says, that's not sneaky Y. That's EY, AY, and that's another secret. So, but anyway, back to sneaky Y. So I loved that. What Amy did was take the buffet position and offer it out to everybody. Let kids take it for what it was worth. It's on a buffet. This little girl probably didn't touch it with a 10-foot pole until she was ready to. And what made her at least a little ready was when Amy was assessing her and pointed to what she saw as like a kid. It's like an entity. This is who he is. This is what he does. This is when he does it. This is when he won't do it. So it's not complex sounds or spelling patterns that you're overloading kids with and you have to teach them one at a time. It's an understanding that's already in their gut. It's already there. These are behaviors kids see and experience and have themselves all day. You're just tying these brand new concepts, skill concepts, to these already deeply entrenched in the gut social emotional understanding and experiences. And that's what makes them hold. That's what makes them stick. And that's what allows them to go back and find it later. And at some point, that little girl will be able to go, I get why the words January E or July or yesterday on the calendar. I get it because sneaky wise, he's in those words on the calendar. So when she's ready to fully grasp the entire concept of what that key is and what doors it unlocks, great. But she's in charge of that. Amy doesn't have to worry about that. She's got everything she needs and she can pick that ball up and run with it the minute she's ready for it. Amy won't miss the boat. That little girl won't miss the boat. And at the end of the day, that little girl gave Amy the explanation of positional sounds of Y. And that's a second grade skill, which is fascinating because all Amy was looking for was for her to go, yeah. She didn't even know what she knew. She just had this really cool shiny thing that was a key, but she didn't know what it was for or what it went into. And that's fine. So that's where this whole developmental readiness can be ridden like a wave, I guess, because all we're doing is tapping into their need, their sense for play, imagination, friendships, social emotional relationships, talking, experiencing, feeling, singing, all the things that we already do and things that upper grade kids really like to do too, and that are backdoor routes to circumvent all of the repetitious skill practice and thousands of sight words, stuff that every kid, no matter how old they are, hate. You don't have to memorize what you can just read. So getting them reading earlier on, compounding those hours spent in the classroom, reading and writing across the day, that's what really bolsters, builds, and just deepens everything that readers need. So when they get to you in second or third grade, boy, they're rolling. They're way past bits and pieces of the code. They're into reading like we read as adults and ready to read to learn. Okay, let's see. I just talked forever again. I said I wasn't going to, and there off I went. Okay. And teacher's great. Looking forward to download a pack. Yep, saw that one too. Just found out. Hopefully, Jennifer, that gave you some insight. Jennifer, our website's, the website's all made for teachers to kick their shoes off and play. So it's really not like a product-focused website. It's a teacher-focused website. My kinders really love the idea of hearing the secret stories. Last week, one of the students was trying to say Thursday when doing the calendar, and one of his peers reminded him of the TH. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that you want. That's what you want. What is the alternative to that? Why are we even doing a calendar? And I say this because I did it too. My first year teaching kindergarten, I did the same stuff. I went through all the things that you're supposed to do, and I did the sequence of everything every day and the sight words. And I had my little G story out, my little H story, and letter, every sound, or I think we did a letter a week. I did all that stuff too. And I've never felt like I've spun in circles more and accomplished less ever. It logically didn't add up. And that's really what made me go to seek out how to give them more to give them, like you said, what they need to figure out what the heck the word Thursday is. We're going to read it every darn day. We might as well know what the heck it is. Otherwise, every time we look at the word Thursday, I'm just making it harder to learn the sound for T. And that's really frustrating. I'm gonna let my dog out. That's really frustrating, I think, for us. We have to assess the sound for T. So if I'm spending every single morning looking at the T, not doing what it's supposed to, I'm just cutting off my own nose to spite my own face. And on the flip side of that, I can do the absolute opposite, which is maximize the instructional density of my time looking at the word Thursday. If kids understand why the T isn't doing what it should, just like they understand why Johnny isn't doing what he should. And it's no harder for them to remember that than it is for Johnny. So not sure what the question was again at that point, but hopefully that came full circle. One of my favorite aspects of the secrets is the developmental appropriateness. The whole buffet is great. Students will decide what they're ready to eat and when. And that is something, I love it too, but I have to be careful when I say it, and I should probably warn you as well. Districts are being hit really hard with the need for explicit, systematic, multisensory phonics instruction. Now, obviously, Secret Story is multisensory. That's easy. Explicit. It couldn't be more explicit, except it's also implicit in that we're taking advantage of opportunities constantly. So while it is explicit, because we are making sure that they've got what they need outside of the context of that word and then patterning it out for all other uses. It's like a key. We show them the key, we open the door, and then we go ahead and show them all the other doors we can open. And we know some kids are just going to suck on the key, and that's fine. But we've given everybody the key. They have it. When they're ready to use it, that's when it'll come out of their pocket. The thing I want to warn you about is buffet access can sometimes be perceived as a slowdown. It can be perceived as we're not really teaching the skills. You're just letting kids happen upon them. And then maybe you'll give them something to think about as they then move through the lunch line. That is absolutely not what the Secret Stories does. But because we are using the idea of a buffet to fast track access to the code, districts love that. The only problem is if they don't perceive it in that lens. If they think it's more namsy-pamsy, toss something out whenever, their concern, and it's rightfully so, is, and this was a concern with the pure whole language approach, the concern is that kids are going to miss the boat throughout these pivotal grade level years where if they don't own everything they need to crack the code, they won't be able to read to learn and make it through as a reader onward through those grade levels. We're doing the opposite. We're actually putting things out on a buffet in advance. And we can only get away with that because we're tapping into a different part of the brain. Otherwise, you would have no basis upon which to be tossing out sneaky Y on the first day of kindergarten or to a kid who doesn't know their individual letter sounds. That would be insane to do that. Just like it would be insane to think you can breathe underwater. And that's why we all carry scuba tanks called sight words. We need them because kids don't get access to the skills they need to read words until higher grade levels. And we have to be reading long before that. You got to read the word the in kindergarten. But if you don't have the TH skill till first grade, you got to memorize your sight word for it. So the only way we can breathe underwater, quote unquote, or not take our scuba tank of sight words down with us is by having a different path to go through. And it is that social emotional play path. It is the path that lets us cut the step out that really kills every other phonics approach, which is repetitious practice, skill, and drill. We don't have to do that. You don't have to practice what makes sense. So if I know what Johnny does and why he does it and where he's most likely to do it, I don't have to put that in my planner. I don't have to memorize that for a quiz. I already understand it because it's already in my thinking network. So the only thing that I have to do is have opportunities to use it, to see you use it, to watch you model it, to watch other kids model it, to see how it's on the calendar. And it's in the sight word that we're supposed to learn for our journey series. You know, if I can keep seeing the key open the door, the key open the door, the key open the door, then I'm going to finally wake up and realize, hey, this key opens the door. What other doors does it open? So it's by going through the back door that we really kind of are able to do this thing called breathing underwater. And by that, I mean, give them this accelerated access to what they're not supposed to have by virtue of a buffet. But just be careful when you are talking about that buffet to a district. And this was actually a talking point for tonight because the same person that said that they had some teachers say, you know, you should just teach one thing at a time. They said their district was concerned that kids could get too far ahead in reading. Now, that's a strange thing, but she clarified it. This was actually something that came up in a past live. She clarified it by saying that if you're teaching some phonics skill, like TH, like sneaky Y is supposed to be taught in second grade. You really shouldn't be teaching that skill in kindergarten because it's really a second grade phonics skill. It is. It's a second grade phonics skill if you teach it as positional sounds of Y. I wouldn't do that either. But that's not what Amy did. Amy taught it as sneaky Y. And that's exactly how it was taken by that little girl. And that made it perfectly, perfectly developmentally appropriate and food for thought to take and use the moment she's ready to. And she will need to be ready to it because she's going to be looking at that calendar every single day starting in pre-K. So that's where the buffet shifts perspective. So just make sure if you're ever talking about the buffet to people that don't understand what secrets are, that they realize what you're doing is you're talking about accelerating access to the code, not slowing it down and losing that grade level accountability for skill instruction that I think districts are worried about. They don't like those grade level walls broken because then they don't know who to hold accountable when kids don't own those second grade phonics skills or first grade phonics skills. We're not going to worry about that because we're hitting it all way early. So kids are going to they're going to have way more than they're supposed to have long before they're supposed to have it. And those skills become gelled into what they're using to read and write. They're no longer just these loose kind of phonics skills. Also, if you subscribe to the Secret Stories blast, the first blast you're going to get gives you a better perspective of this that you can take your time and digest more because it's all about those bus stops that we see along the way with those grade level walls. Last week, one student was trying, I got that one, my favorite aspects of developmental appropriateness, and I did say that one. Let's see, I use the secret story when I have to introduce high frequency words. Yeah, absolutely. Your sight words, and I don't mean to put down sight words. Sight words are key words. They're everywhere. Kids need to be super fast with them. It's just that they don't need to spend time rote memorizing what they can actually read. So I love that. That's exactly right. If you're looking at the word my, there's a door, grab your key. We got this perfect key. We can read this word, guys. Look, we don't have to memorize it. What other words can we read with this key? Look at this big book that's by this author. So there's 1,000, Shelby is going to be really grateful that she got that sneaky Y. Otherwise, she's going to have to memorize that she's got a letter that has no business being at the end of her name. So those are the perfect opportunities to probably hit secrets first. And I've always mentioned the blog post that Tara Settle did, but I liked it because it laid out a lot of the biggest landmines you've got in your path across the course of any instructional day at early grade reading grades, and how to scoot around those landmines with a secret so that you don't have to waste your time spinning in circles with a lot of skill and drill that are the opposite means of practice for these little kids who want to play with their shoe and lick their neighbor. They don't want to practice skills on index cards. And again, it really takes full power out of what you're doing every day. You're going to read and write across the day. Kids might as well get something out of that. They might as well have something that they can connect to see what it is that you're actually saying and doing and how what they know connects with it perfectly. In other words, watching you open doors is not nearly as much fun for me if I don't have the same keys you have to do it. If I've got the same keys that you've got to get into the closet that's got the candy, that's mind-boggling to me because I'm looking in my pocket going, crap, I have one of those keys too. I can do this also because I can relate to what you're doing since I understand what it is and I see what it looks like and I actually understand what it does. So that's one of the reasons kids like to watch kids on TV more than they like to watch adults, even babies, because they connect with that pattern that is a kid and they can think like a kid so they can identify with the kid. Same idea with the secrets. Kids are much more in tune to text when they can see things in the text that they can actually make sense of, even if they don't fully understand it. They understand it enough to notice what's happening. And that's awesome. One of my favorite aspects of the secret stories. Okay, I already said that part. Help secret stories to figure out sight words. Yeah, sight words are going to be your first entree into the secrets because that's really what you're on the fire to make sure kids have. And I think teachers need to breathe that sigh of relief that kids have them and that they've got them. And then you could start going into the next years and the next years. And it's not even by list. It's just by what they're seeing, what they're reading, what they're doing. So it's kind of fun to knock off those checklists of what's supposed to be taught in kinder versus second versus first versus, sometimes on to third and watch it just kind of like through your car window where it's just zooming right by. And you get the benefit in the early grades of having real readers and writers, not just teaching in a vacuum and then hoping next year they can use it to actually read and write. We teach weekly word families. What is your take on teaching secrets outside of students' questions? I have a mixed feel on word families. Maybe because I feel like the world's complicated enough. By that, I mean, letters almost never make the sounds they're supposed to. So when they do, it's like, oh, hallelujah. There's no secret needed. Secrets are what happens when letters don't do what they should. In my word, that seems to happen all the time. Our world runs rampant with letters coming together and not doing what they should, unless you know the secret. So my thinking is I I understand it's kind of the parallel again to if you can't breathe underwater versus if you can. If you can't breathe underwater and kids aren't going to get access to the whole code earlier, then I totally get why word families would make sense to help kids read like fat, mat, cat, bat, or hut, mutt, but, rut. I get why you would want to chunk letter sounds, individual letter sounds, since that's all they're going to know, into groupings so they can at least read that much a little faster. But the problem is, visually speaking, because kids are going to be exposed to these letters, these patterns coming together early on, they're always going to be conditioned to think if you're drawing attention to a letter pattern, there's something up with it. There's a secret. Those two letters must come together and do something they're not supposed to do. And that's a good thing, because that way they've got those individual letters and sounds. That happens in 2 weeks to 2 months with muscle memory, the Better Alphabet Song, which you can find easily on this YouTube channel, or on even the download that I'm going to post. They've got those, but the secrets are everything else. So I don't like to draw attention visually to patterns or chunks in words where letters are going to do exactly what they're supposed to, because we can already read that. And there's enough trouble in the world having to keep track of the secrets. So keeping track of or at, or, to me, it's like, just read those and just go, hum, bum, and so on and so forth. And then let the visual focus for patterns in words be on these actual secrets, these triggers where they really require some attention, because those letters are going to come together and do something different. Otherwise, I find that kids will start scanning your secret posters to look for what's just a word family, and there is no secret to the at and the am and the in and the ut. They're just letters coming together doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So I think you'll also see that you don't have as much trouble dealing with those as kids are reading more, which they will be reading more because they have more to read with and they have more to write with. So I think that really makes that ball spin 10 times faster. Right now, kids have nothing to read or write with in kinder if you follow your normal scope and sequence. So you cling to things like that, like an air tank, just like we cling to sight words like an air tank, because that's their only ammo that they bring to the table to read and write with. But when kids have individual letter sounds and simultaneous access to 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12 secrets, that's a lot of stuff to bring to the table and write about your pet mouse. Amy was still working on getting those, she was just working with a kid who barely knew the T or the L or the M. And this little girl already pulled the sneaky Y secret, plus whatever other ones Amy tossed out. She just hadn't quite yet made the connection to use it as a reader or writer, but it was all right there, ready to go. Soon as those dots could connect, and she got a little more experience. And I almost think that the reason she hadn't seen that it was in that letter Y is she had just gotten her individual letter sounds so recently. It's only been 2 weeks, and she went from none to all. So that means she hadn't gotten much bang for the buck out of the text experience that Amy had been offering, because she wasn't bringing enough to the table yet to have to see the connections, or the modeling wasn't as helpful until she had a little more to read and write with. Kind of like what I said about the pre-Ks at the beginning of the broadcast, which is that what makes them chew into those secrets are as they learn more and more individual letter sounds, because that's when the combination of the two power each other up like magic. If you know the huh, and then you see the ow in the word how, I just read the word how. But if I don't know the ow and all I know is my H sound, I'm not really even reinforcing the H sound because I can't read the word how anyway. So it's interesting to see how those two simultaneously are what really just kind of turn into like an atom bomb together. And I think had that little girl had that earlier access to those individual letters and sounds, and she was, Amy was going through the front door, which is what we all do, teaching those letters and sounds. The Better Alphabet Song goes through muscle memory, and that isn't as reliant on language or experience or developmental readiness, or it's actually not relying on that at all. It's motor memory, muscle memory. So it bypasses a lot of what's not yet developed up here for some of those early grade learners. And you'll see more about that in the handout as well on the brain development piece, because that's really what the fascinating part of the plug-in is. What areas do we really have to work with as early grade teachers? And what areas are closed for business for some of our learners? And are we really going to sit there and wait like a slave for their readiness? We can't be a slave to readiness. We have to be able to jump in and go the moment that kids hit the classroom, because our assessments don't really allow kids the time and the space that they need to develop these higher level processing centers. So we need to have a backdoor way to get in, even if those processing centers aren't fully developed. Once they are, the kids can hit the ground running because we've already slid and primed that information into this little backdoor space. I do a secret story every week using our spelling patterns. Yeah, the only thing I would say, and it actually flipped before I got, oh, here it is, Aletta. A secret story every week that goes with our spelling patterns, taught that week. Many times the students have been taught the secret, but we showcase it for the week. That, I don't know what grade you teach. The only thing I would say is don't hoard your buffet in a back room and only put out one thing at a time. Have you ever been to a buffet and you planned to eat really healthy, and then you took a look and you saw the apple cobbler, or you saw the chocolate mousse, or you saw the pot roast or the prime rib, and you had planned to just eat a salad and some fruit? And then because you realized in the moment that you actually needed and wanted something else, you couldn't help yourself and you had to have that. Same exact thing happens with the secrets. That is so, so, so important. As a matter of fact, I have something I will read to you that I pulled from this in relation to that. I'm going to put my glasses back on here. And this is actually, this is your responses to someone that asked a similar question, which was, where did it go? Okay. It's about hanging all the posters up. That's a huge question I get. And this is kind of what you're asking, although you're talking about introducing them. So hanging them all up is a little bit different, but I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here. Someone had asked, they had said, hanging all the posters after telling secrets works best for me. So I hang the poster after I tell the secret. And I'm working very quickly to get all the secrets told. That is not going to get you the most bang for the buck, for not just the buffet reason I mentioned, but also for these reasons. And I'm not going to give you my explanation. I'm going to tell you what the teacher said. Ms. Sims said, definitely put all the posters up at once, grab their attention. They will ask over and over when they can learn the unknown secret for the posters that are up that they don't know. And that's totally true. And you build that visual acuity to recognize those patterns so that even though kids don't know the secret yet, they identify that's a chunk, that's a thing, it goes together. That's again, part of why I was saying I wasn't crazy with the word families, to draw attention to word families, because kids will think there's something up with that am or an or ut or at. And we don't want their visual acuity to become diffused and disjointed. We want their visual acuity to jump to those patterns in text where you can't go from one letter to another. I can say, at, pat, I can slide right through that word, but I can't do that for the word paw because I would get pa-wa. I need to know that there are two letters in love in the word pa in order to read that word paw. So I want that visual acuity to be strong. And when I tell them the secret, they've already seen it. It's kind of like they knew Johnny was in their classroom. They didn't know his name, but they know he's the one that always gets in trouble and he always cries. And he can't eat peanuts. They can have an awareness of a lot of the different behaviors, in this case, sound behaviors, before they necessarily know the name of the letter. So you can front load a lot in visually by having those posters up. Even if you haven't attached the secret yet. And I know I haven't mentioned what you're saying, which is introducing them with spelling patterns. You're not really asking about posters. So I'll get to your question as I hit this, but I think I can pretty well knock out two birds with one stone here as I tell you what some of these other answers are. Amy had said, students don't need to be told, secrets don't need to be told to be discovered. That's why we hang them all first. The power of the posters is amazing. And that goes directly to what you were saying or asking about, which is spelling patterns. I do love that they come up with your spelling patterns, with your words their way, with if you're in an upper grade, with your spelling test. But that shouldn't be the only time they come up. They're not mutually exclusive. So they also can come up anytime you are either contradicting yourself because you're now pointing to a word where letters are not making the sound they're supposed to. And that's why I asked you what grade you were, because if you're in an early grade, letters are almost never making the sounds kids think they're supposed to. If you're in an upper grade, it's a little bit different because you're kind of going back, plugging holes, and most of your kids may not be wondering why they aren't because they already know how to read that word. So you approach it a little differently from one level versus the other. But they're definitely there to be discovered, and you are Christopher Columbus. So discover. You won't get to be Christopher Columbus for long. Your kids will become little mini Christopher Columbuses, and then you'll just be dragged behind a train. But initially, make sure that they're ample, they're available, they're everywhere, and encourage kids to see them everywhere, to notice them everywhere, use them everywhere. You've got keys to get into anywhere you want in the building, and every bit of text are doors in your building, doors that you're going to be coming to on a constant basis and have to either just walk away or carry the kids through and never explain how it was that you got through yourself. So take those opportunities to constantly give them those keys that they need, so they don't need you with them the next time they see those doors. That's what's going to get them reading and writing outside of your classroom. And the best way to become a reader and a writer is to read and write. But you have to have things to read and write with. And so you just want to arm them with as many of those things as you can give them. And your instructional day will give you ample opportunity to do that, even far beyond just, your spelling patterns. That's definitely a good catch-all to make sure that you do. And it's a great opportunity for introduction, but it's one of many that you'll be able to easily find. A couple other suggestions that I saw that were awesome is when you, someone else wrote, I made the mistake of hanging only the posters that I thought we would need in kindergarten, only to find out that we needed all of them, because once they knew one secret, they were looking for the next one. And that's totally true. But I love that she noticed that she made a mistake thinking. And again, we put ourselves, we're the waitress. We're the ones who decide when you need more water. We're the ones who decide when you look like your soup is finished and you're ready to have your meal. We are always the gatekeeper of skills, and especially when it comes to skills that we're teaching early grade learners, because we don't want to be developmentally inappropriate, or our peers are telling us, like the other teacher said, don't give them more than one sound at a time. What are you supposed to do with one sound? Again, it's like teaching the number 4 without the number 3 and 5. How are you going to become proficient and have a depth of knowledge with what the number 4 really represents if you don't understand the context in which it's used and exists for? So a 4 is only going to become a deeply owned concept or skill concept for you as you manipulate it within what it exists for, which is to count, to add, to subtract. And to do that, you're going to need to know more than the number 4. So if we have a way to give kids that access to what they need to do all these things with it, then think how much value they get out of all that reading and writing with us, let alone when they're not with us. And I am going to throw this in really quickly and I said this last week, but it's just so important. That little guy that came up to his teacher and said, I can't turn it off. I can't turn it off. And she said, what are you talking about? He said, the reading. I can't turn it off. I see words. I every time I look at words, I see secrets everywhere. And then I just keep reading them and I can't turn it off. I love that. And he even qualified it by saying, I used to be able to just look at letters and I could just stare at them. But now every time I look at letters, I keep seeing secrets and then I just keep reading them and I can't turn it off. We want to teach so kids can't turn it off. We want to give them enough of what they need to read and write with, that whether they even try, they look at a word and it just starts to make sense. I couldn't show you a word right now and say, okay, I'm going to show you this word, but don't read it. Don't read it until I say, because you can't help it. You can't turn it off either. You see the word pa, and you've read the word pa. But if you didn't have the AW sound, you could look at the word pa all day long and you're not going to care or even notice or maybe even pay attention. Probably just kick your neighbor instead. So if we teach so they can't turn it off, we get this incredible compounded instructional density in every moment that we are reading and writing across the day. Not to mention all the moments that they are at a restaurant with their mom looking at a menu and reading those words. Or as a little kid that was watching a commercial told his teacher, he said, do you have bills to pay? He knew how to read the word bills. And the teacher said, how did you know to put 2 T's? It wasn't reading, it was spelling. How'd you know to put 2 T's in the word bill? And he said, because I saw a commercial. It said, do you have bills to pay? Call us. Now, the only reason that little guy would probably have been tuned in to look at that TV was if he could actually make sense of those letters and sounds. Otherwise, those letters and sounds would have just, in kindergarten, would have just floated right off of his back. But we can't help but read. We will do what we can do by default if it's that easy for us to do it. So the more of the code they have, the more you really start that snowball. Okay. Let's see. So when teaching weekly word, I did the word family part, teaching secret stories specific to word families. And again, if you're thinking word families like an ow or an ing or an or a shun, that's different. That would be like secrets. So that makes perfect sense. I just was usually when I think of word families, I think of, like blends, letters that come together and just do exactly what they're supposed to anyway. So other than just getting speed with them, like for instance, secret stories with the Beethoven blends and the singing for the blends, we want speed, but there's no secret about the blends. Letters in blends, they just do exactly what they're supposed to. They just are smushed together. So it's a little bit of a load off, for kids. They can relax and just read it. Secret stories a week as long as spelling. Okay, we already talked about that one. What's the blog that you just mentioned? I don't know. What was the blog I just mentioned? I probably mean the Secret Stories blog. So if you go to the Secret Stories site, you'll see the blog, and then you can always, there's a search bar now on every page of the Secret Stories website. So you can search for specific things. If you're talking about the blog that I mentioned with Tara's and Amy's, there's some really, really awesome stuff. There's so many teacher stuff up there. But the one where I was talking about pulling secrets to sight words so that you could see the connections and kids could see them hands-on. I think it's the second most recent post on the blog. And you'll see it there. The first one, I think, the most recent one, I think, is Amy's, and that gives you so many creative ways to work. Actually, Amy's is ideal to show you what I'm talking about as far as how this just naturally infuses itself into your instructional day. Tara's does the same thing, but it focuses more like a magnifier on the stuff that you may be thinking you have to do instead of using that as your perfect way to get it done. In other words, the sight words that the Journeys reading series makes you learn, or how do you read the story of Curious George if you don't have, these 4 secrets, because otherwise they're just memorizing the book or the story, which unfortunately, if you have a reading series and it's the 2nd or 3rd week of 1st grade, they can't read those words. They have to memorize them because those words are made up of 2nd grade phonics skills. So why memorize 18 words if you could just learn 4 secrets? And then those 4 secrets will be coming back around all day long and in next week's story and every math word problem and the menu and so on and so forth. On Monday, we usually play telephone secrets to reveal the secret in our spelling words. Love that idea. I want you to videotape that. Please videotape that. I'd love to share that because you added on a whole nother little piece to the telephone game. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so Jamie, I'll be waiting for that video. I introduced HFW by grouping them by secrets. Example, how, now, our, out, found. Yeah, that's great. And I mean, patterning out, as soon as I tell a secret, you pattern it out to all the different words that it's in. So same idea, absolutely. I think the higher the grade level, and by higher, I just mean if you're not hitting this from the ground up, if you're in 2nd or 3rd, you sometimes are going to work backward like that because you've got a lot of curriculum where you have to do spelling tests. You have to do, let's say, words their way. And I like words their way, but you've got vocabulary. So you've got things in your face almost all the time. So you don't have I guess I'll call it the luxury of just randomly discovering all of the ways to put your key to use. You've already got doors that are served to you on a platter every hour that you have to unlock. And so obviously it makes sense then to grab the keys you need to unlock all those doors. And that's great for introduction. And I think that's probably what the couple above meant as far as the spelling list to be a good introducer of secrets, which is why I don't want to imply that I don't agree with that. It's just make sure that's not the only introduction time. Make sure that the buffet has more than just the one thing laid on it that is whatever the spelling test might be. And one thing with that, because it was another question that was there, if you are using it like you're talking about with the, like you were talking about the how, now, cow, flower, and I actually have this OW secret right here for this purpose. I say that and then there it is. Okay, if you have it, show the whole thing and tell the whole thing, tell the whole secret. I'm doing a journey with a Malaysian teacher and she's incredible. But I noticed when she was telling in the calendar a word, the word day, A-Y, E-Y, A-Y, I go, A, because they're just too cool. And when she was telling this secret, she was looking at the calendar. So she only showed them this much of it. Well, she didn't only show them this. She showed them this, but I think she infused the picture onto it, like for the purpose of sharing the video. And she only infused the AW onto it. Now, like with letter sounds, when you're pointing to your alphabet chart and you have a capital and a lowercase letter, you want to reference both. So when you're singing the Better Alphabet song, you're just saying B says b, 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 but you're pointing to the general proximity of both that capital and lowercase because you want the most bang for the buck. You want kids to know that, meaning both of those is B. So same idea with this. So even though I might, tell the secret in relation to, the word, A on the calendar, I'm still going to tell the secret about how EY and AY are just too cool. And they always stick up their thumbs and go, A. And then when I pattern it out, like you're talking about with those words for owl, the owl sound, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to share with them some words that have the other one in it too. So if I were just talking about, Sunday and today and whatever with the EY, AY, I might also mention the word they, or let kids tell me another word they can think of that might have that A sound in it. And of course, keep in mind, they might tell you some mommy E words. They might tell you some AI, 2000 go walking words, so be prepared. But, it's a good way to make sure you get as many birds with one stone. So like with this OUOW, this was actually the question. This was the one that other person mentioned specifically about teachers saying better not to give them both sounds. Just let them know ow, but hold off on telling them that it can say O. And they told her this in follow-up to telling her about not saying that C, let's say, has two sounds. Just tell them the K and then wait to give them the S. Again, bang for the buck. The secret is going to fold it all up together. And since the secret's going to fold it all up together, why not just give it to them in a clump? It's not confusing. It's no more confusing them than knowing Johnny can't have peanuts. He curses and he kicks people, but he's really sweet and he's always nice to Sheila, who has no friends. They can keep track of all of that because it's not a skill. It's something they already understand and they're just pulling behaviors together. And this helps them remember it. So the OUOW, somebody always plays rough and gets hurt and goes, OUOW, always play rough, and somebody always gets hurt and says, ow! But flying overhead is their all-time favorite superhero ever. And anytime he flies overhead, they will stop dead in their tracks and stop roughhousing and go, oh, because they love him. They'll always point right up to where he's flying. Oh. The reason that's so important is kids need that default because they're going to see words like how or the other words that you'd mentioned that you were asking about, but they're going to also see words like blow or flow or glow. So why would we hold back the 3 and teach them the 4? If we want them to get proficient with the ow sound, we also want to arm them with the O sound, especially when it's as easy as telling one story. If anything, I think it would be really confusing to try to break this story up into 2 parts. Just like I think it would be really confusing to teach a 4 without being able to talk about the 3 or the 5, And it's so funny because I feel like that's what teachers have to do every day. When we have to teach letters a week or we have to teach 100 sight words and only individual letters. And it's like being forced to teach a 3 without getting to also mention the 4 and the 5. It makes our job impossible. Because how do you get proficient with something that you can't use? And how do you use something if you don't have what you need to use it with? So all of that to say, no, you wouldn't want to hold back. And if you're doing what you're talking about, which I love, which is using those sounds, those groupings, and I've lost your piece now to see exactly what your words were. Here it is. How, now, ow, out, found. That's awesome. Go ahead and definitely when you tell the secret, tell the whole secret. Show the whole secret and go ahead and pattern out the whole secret so that they also hear words like blow, flow, glow. You will be dumbfounded and it will happen. And I guarantee it when later that day, a kid comes to you and says, look, there's the O going, oh, because he sees the superhero. They don't forget. They don't forget any more than they forget that they're supposed to get candy at 11 o'clock. It's almost will floor you how kids so deeply own what you say when it connects with what their world consists of, which is other kids' business, behaviors of other kids, and the social emotional experiences that they have and already understand. That you're talking their language when you're talking about things like that. If you've ever been a substitute teacher, you know this because the one thing you are just bombarded with by kids telling you is who the line leader is, who the line leader was, who's not allowed to be line leader, who can't be the runner, who's not allowed to be a runner, who can't be a door holder, who's never allowed to be at the end of the line, who's not allowed to have a peanut, who cusses, who spits, who can't sit together. They have like a laundry list of crap that they know that is all about the behaviors, the social and emotional connections that they are familiar with in a classroom. These just go right into that. So it's kind of nice. Makes our job super easy. I teach 10 or so pre-primer words that they need, but then disregard the grade level and use the secrets. Awesome. Awesome. And those 10 or so pre-primer words that they need, I'm assuming you mean simultaneously with the secrets, because obviously that can cut out a lot of the work with those 10 pre-primer words that they need. If they're getting those, if you're doing the Better Alphabet song, letting secrets come out. Like I always say this, I always toss out the AUAW on the first day of school, not because it's got a lot of bang for the buck, but it's August. And I don't want to look like a big liar. I'm not going to point to the A, the big capital A in my alphabet and say it says an A when I sing it. And then turn around and 5 seconds later, point to the capital A in the word August and say, ah. Because if anybody's paying attention to me, I look like a big liar. Because obviously I'm not making the one sound I told them they're supposed to. And if they're paying attention, the sound I did make actually belongs to a whole other letter. And that ain't it. So I don't want to be teasing the brain, which is the ultimate pattern making machine. I want to work with the ultimate pattern making machine. And I want to work with the brain system of learning. And I want to always, always, always make sense. And that brings back the why from kids with a vengeance. Why? Because you're not always having to squelch it with it just is, it just does. You just have to remember. So you just set a course for this high speed, almost on steroids kind of access. And even when they don't quite know what to do with it yet, like Amy's little one, it's there, it's incubating. It's always sitting there in the background, waiting for those dots to connect as you draw the connections throughout the day using your keys to unlock those words. So if the pre-primer words are words that you want to touch on laterally to making sure you're still kind of like with those word families, you're not just not word families, I'm sorry, with the introducing of a once a week spelling pattern. As long as, as long as that's happening alongside giving access to secrets as they come up, you're going to have more opportunities than you will want to take to introduce secrets just by default of working with text all day long. So I'm assuming that's probably what you mean. But just like I said, just don't wait on one to do the other, and then you can gauge it for yourself, because you'll know really quickly what was a total waste of time versus what was really a good handy thing to do. But you just don't ever want to hold yourself back to speed yourself up, if that makes sense. I think sometimes we put ourselves right in the middle of something because we're used to a slower pace. And sometimes when you just let the train go and grab on behind, you end up where you never thought you'd really be. And then you have a whole different way of making decisions about what to do and when to do them. Okay. Thanks for your input about the word families. It makes sense. Cynthia, I love the idea about grouping HF high frequency. Okay. Yes. And I see what you're saying. I was thinking at first, I was thinking program acronym, high frequency words. Yeah. But you know what, the interesting part here, this is where I'm talking about, like, sometimes where we don't see the elephant in the room. High frequency words are high frequency words because they're everywhere. They're going to be in your face all day long. As a matter of fact, you're never going to not read a single sentence without a high frequency word. So it's so easy to just take those organic opportunities to use the key they need to unlock the door. And if you do that, you probably won't have to group a lot because they'll already be doing it throughout the day. Now, having said that, I see what you're saying. And that's actually a lot of what I think Tara put together in that blog post that I was talking about, which is the second most recent one on the Secret Stories website. But it was a way to look back. In other words, when Tara was doing that, she was tossing out the secrets like a buffet. Like you're like a crazy buffet worker. Every time somebody seems like they want some corn, you're right there with it. And even if the kids who don't want it, you're showing them where it is, what it looks like. You're telling the secret. Then what she would do is reflecting back in, let's say, a Journey's reading story. She would pull the required sight words for memory and then take these little placards that look like this. Well, there's different ones, like either these or the placards are not. Those are the flashcards. The placards are these smaller, these. And I wanted to show you these anyway because I wanted to show you the size difference. She would use these or these and have sight words around them so that it's just kind of another way to connect the dots, another way to get, those little Lulus to kind of wake up and smell the coffee, another way to show cause and effect, what a key does to a door. Keys aren't just shiny things you can suck on. Keys actually have a purpose. Look, they get you here, they get you here, they get you here. So by taking, let's say, Sneaky Y and then putting some of those sight words around it that had to be learned anyway for that Journey story, but no longer have to be learned as sight words. Now it's just a good exercise for us to play with this Sneaky Y thing that we already know how to read. So it's not that she waited to teach the Sneaky Y until those sight words happened. It kind of worked both ways. Now, there were some secrets she might have only tossed out because of that. So for example, I know one of the things she tossed out because I saw it in the Curious George was CECICY, and that is not something you typically are going to throw out in the second week of first grade organically. But you needed it for George, Curious George, GE. That's how you know to say just. She also had to throw out something else I wouldn't normally throw out in the first couple weeks of first grade, which was I tries E on for size, because they needed it to understand curious doesn't have an E where you hear the E sound. It has an I. So she picked 4 stories and that cracked 17 words that the kids otherwise would have had to use rote, memory, skill, and drill to read. And instead, they got to own 4 secrets, crack those words, plus all the other words that came up that week with them, and guaranteed there would be more words in the next week's story that had those same 4 secrets, plus she'd have an opportunity to introduce some more. So like with all those other questions that are similar to what you're saying, I love the idea of introducing these secrets for purposes that you already have. And obviously grouping like psych words together is perfect. Just make sure that it's not mutually exclusive. Just make sure that you are also tossing out whatever key is needed to get through whatever door you're in front of, if it's on a regular basis. I'm not saying give them every secret for every word they see or you'll be done in the first 10 minutes. I just mean if it's something that's regular, part of the routine, if it's a big hole in the boat, if you're going to lie every day about it, and obviously you're not lying, but I mean, if you're going to go to your calendar every day and make the sound for Y that is not the Y sound, as a matter of fact, you're going to make every sound other than the sound that's supposed to be the Y sound. That's a perfect hole in the boat. That's the most huge hole in the boat. So those are the holes that you want to make sure you plug with a secret. And then if you can draw those parallels to the sight word list for a story that you're using or to a spelling grouping, or that, perfect. But don't ignore the introduction of what that key is that's needed because you're waiting for it to come up on a spelling list or a vocabulary list or the words the way or whatever. You'll get so many opportunities to use those keys naturally throughout your day. And again, at the end of the day, the more they've got, the more they can do. So there's never a reason to hold them back, ever, ever. I mean, if you can toss them out, toss them out. But again, you know, biggest hole in the boat, that dictates what a good one might be first. If it were July, I always say this too, AUAW, even though that happens to be the first one I toss out, it's not because it's the most needed, except for the fact that it's August and we're going to be reading the word August every day. If school started in July, I would not toss out AUAW on the first day of school. If it started in September, I'd toss out the ER-IRUR secret on the first day of school. So you use your common sense about what you know you're going to be focusing on regularly. And then that's, you know, obviously where things start to come from. Jamie, I'm in the process of reordering my word wall based on secrets. Yeah. And that's awesome to do. I mean, that's a great place to organize things around because that's, again, it's more of a reflection back. It's not a waiting on. You just never want to be the waitress waiting for something to teach, waiting for a kid to ask, waiting for, you know, you want to be the buffet that's got anything you could ever need right here the minute you even start to feel like you might want it. Okay, rethinking. Oh, and also too, you can check out, there's a vlog called The Word Jail, and you can check that out too, because that is another idea for some word walls that I think would be really useful. You'll see it in the YouTube videos under the, there's like a cartoon thing and it says secret stories, or just type in word jail, secret stories, word jail, it should pull up as well. And I'm going to try to go through these quickly just because I hate to keep you guys. But I'm going to absolutely answer anything that y'all ask. So if you need to head out and go to the Super Bowl, go ahead. I'm never going to make my quota of not being quiet sooner. I would like to see that when you finish, Lauren. Yeah, I'd love to see that too. When you do reorganize your word wall, please shoot me a picture as well. Thanks for information. I still put them up in ABC order, but I have the week's new words in a separate place where we were practicing them and temporarily put the secret flashcard next to it. Yeah, I'd like to see what that looks like. That's interesting. So that'd be, I'd like to see that. That sounds good. Lauren, I'd like to use the word wall space for secrets. Any reason not to? That was another question on my thing today, which was hanging the secrets. There's so many secrets. They take up so much space is what I've been hearing. And I get it. I totally get it. And that's one of the reasons that I harp at the office when they're doing the website to almost not allow early grade teachers to buy the Space Saver kit. And of course they won't do that because their attitude is the market drives purchase and you don't get to choose what another teacher uses. But I know as a teacher, we are so protective of our wall space. And I realize that. And I know given our choice, we always want something that will take up the least space. But I also know that the smaller posters are not at all going to serve the needs of early grade learners who have the attention span of a gnat. And if they can't find what they need instantly, they'll just resort to spelling it however else because they don't even understand that there's a right and a wrong way to spell something. So if they can toss it out any old way, why would they bother looking up at the secret to see what the pattern is to use? So it's got to be easily visually accessible. And on that note, there are better reasons than the ones I had for the hanging of the secrets and some ideas to do it. So I'm going to tell you what those are very quickly because I thought these were really just better at nailing it than I think I am. First and foremost is the hanging of all of them in general, just that they take or the space. One person wrote, and let's see if I can find where it was. Hang the poster sign. Okay, where did it go? Hanging. First of all, how to hang. Someone was asking about best ways to hang, and I'll just tell you this part really quickly. Poster tape, sticky tack, after laminating. I just recently posted a washing line, which was a really neat idea because it surrounded the kids on both sides. And this is the Malaysian teacher. You can see it on Instagram. She actually did a whole visual of setting up all of her anchors. And then we did a Q&A talking about what would work, what maybe might be tricky. um, and troubleshooting. And we're going to continue doing this, but I loved the wash line, and you can actually see pictures, I think, also on Facebook of it. And there is a blog post called Posting Posters, which if you type that into the search on the Secret Stories website, tab blog, and then Posting Posters, you'll be able to see them there as well. It was a neat idea when you have less wall space or you have fire marshals to hang those like on those little laundry lines. Hot glue was what I used to use, but for teachers who don't have extra funds, to have hands-on placards or extra sets of posters for kids to actually handle and use for like the games that we talked about or the interactive activities. If you want to make use of the ones on your wall for your actual activities and have them be removable, then apparently this poster tape works well as long as they're laminated. And I know the sticky tack does as well, because you can pull them off, put them on, pull them off, put them on. And that's nice to have the ability for kids to handle them as well as having them up. They have to be up. They can't just have them down and handling them. You have to have anchors up all the time, because kids have to have a place to go to get what they need for reading and spelling. But if you want to pull things up and down, as long as they keep going back up at the end, that's fine. And then ultimately, if you have a second set that's for manipulative purpose, that's really easy. What I really wanted to hit though was the thing I'm looking for about the posters, and it's bugging me because I don't have too much time, but I'm trying to find where those teachers were writing what they said, because it was a really good discussion there. And I will be darned, I don't know where it went. I'll try to recap some of what I was told, or what I remember reading. First of all, that and I've said this before as well, that they are going to be the most used. Here it is. I found it now. Okay. Definitely. Well, I think actually I said this. I'm sorry. Okay. When you use these posters, it might turn out that you don't need a lot of your other posters. That was just such a succinct point, and it's really true. A lot of the things that we have up in our classroom are about how to use your scuba tank, meaning the sight words kids need to know, the word families kids have to have, all the things you have to do to get around the fact that they can't read or don't have all the phonics patterns yet, because they're still going to be introduced in first grade, or they're going to be used in second grade, or you're in second grade and kids are missing what they didn't get in first grade or in kindergarten. So a lot of our anchors are geared toward workarounds for kids who can't read the words. The secrets are the tools to read the words. So if you have a way to breathe underwater, you won't really need your how-to scuba tank manual on the wall anymore, because nobody's got the tank on their back. So I always go back to that analogy, because I think it's the best way to see that what we think we need to do traditionally, it's not that it's wrong. It makes perfect sense for you to have the anchors in your room that you would have if kids can't read those words in kindergarten, which they can't. If they don't know the ow sound until second grade on the scope and sequence, they can't read the word howl. So it would make sense that you might have anchors with all those ow words. But if kids can read the word because they have the tool, then maybe that can come down. So there's all kinds of things that as you reevaluate, you'll see that you don't need, but you certainly don't want to keep up the stuff that is the compensation when you don't then put up what knocks that all out. And that's what I meant about, sometimes getting in our own way. Sometimes we are holding up what we're trying to do by doing the stuff we don't need to do. And it's a double whammy. So just be aware, always kind of ask, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And that was actually the focus of the email that I sent out, that I hate being told what to do. I'm not good at doing things if I don't know why I'm doing them. And I'm really not good at doing things if you tell me how I'm supposed to do them, because if I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm probably going to come up with what I think is the best way to do it. And I'm going to fine tune that all the way home. So that's why with the secrets, I do want you to make them your own. And there's really not a lot that you need to know other than just jump in and do it. So everything we're talking about here is just troubleshooting, just so you can make it bigger, better, stronger, faster from the get-go. And you don't have to kind of trial and error your way through it like, a lot of the teachers have. But even if you're trialing and error your way through it, you're still going to be thinking, wow, this works great. But you still might be getting half the progress you could get, for example, if you, let's say, told the secrets at the same time you're singing the Better Alphabet song. Don't just be happy that the Better Alphabet song got them all their individual letters and sounds fast and then start doing the secrets. You could, waitress thinking might lean you in that direction. But if you know right off the bat, hey, go ahead and do it simultaneously, then you just jumped kind of 5 steps in the game. So that, if that helps, but I loved the way that she just kind of put that out there with those posters. that they really will help you not have to have as much up there on your wall. I love to use my wall space for secrets. Any reason not to? No. And that was the question I read before. Is there a particular order to hang them? There really isn't. There are shapes that I've seen teachers cut them into that help them be faster recognized on the wall. On that posting posters blog post, I think there's even a link to that in the email that I sent out. You can see I actually redid it so that it's a little cleaner. The blogs are kind of messy because some came over from the old website. So if they look a little, like fumbuzzled, that's why. But I did redo that one so you could see the most stuff of ways teachers hang posters and just give you ideas. I just found and thought of this fun idea for teaching Mommy E today. Well, Daniel, what is it? He didn't tell me what it was. He just said he thought of it, but then he didn't say what it was. So hopefully Daniel will chime back in with what that was. Catherine, I think I will place a laundry line in front of my windows and hang some from there. Only one row, but it should get at least half of them up. Which half? Which half though? Like if I want to write about my mouse and that's not part of the half, what am I going to do? If my name is Shelby and Sneaky Wise, not one of them, what will I do? So it's just, again, it's hard to, I get what you're saying and I totally feel your pain with the space. And actually that's one of the things I told Jen, the one who did the tour video with the clothesline. She also did the same thing. She had half of them up on one wall. And I'm like, is that all the secrets? That doesn't look like all the secrets. She's like, no, it's about half. So then she had to go back and put the clothesline up on the other side because that's the only way to make sure that you're not deciding who wants what half of the buffet. And that's the thing is the code doesn't discriminate. You're not going to be able to account for what's going to be in the book that Johnny's going to want to read or that story that Susie's going to want to write or even what your reading series is going to want to share. Like I'm sure Tara Settle had no interest in teaching those particular 4 secrets. At least I wouldn't have for that second week of school. I tries the emphasize, CECI, maybe the that was a good one to teach at the time. And she did, but 2 of the 4 were probably not her first picks for second week of first grade, but they needed them. And if she didn't teach them, they would have wasted a ton of time working around words that they couldn't read. And that's all just instructional time lost. So, and memorization and the brain getting hit with things that don't make sense. And the lack of kids driving the learning. Because again, I don't know what I need till it's up there. And once it's up there, maybe that's what's really going to make my juices flow to get me to want to know what it is. So my only question would be, if you're going to hang half, which half? How could you know which half? How will you know which half? That's the tricky part. And then again, the visual bang for the buck of kids seeing the patterns before you've introduced the secrets, maybe for 3/4 of the year before you've introduced that particular secret, but they've had to scan past it every time they're looking for the ones they know. To find the one they know, they have to scan past the ones they don't. And every time their eyes scan through it, it's like a penny in the cup holding the weight down of connecting to that pattern, meaning they can see it and they know it's a chunk, it's a thing, it exists. So when you tie the sound to it, they already see it coming in text a mile away because it's basically like sitting right next to their best friend. They didn't know his name was Jeremy, but they knew a lot about him and he sat right next to their best friend and they know he cries and he can't eat peanuts and he's, and he likes to hit people. And then they found out he was Jeremy. But in the meantime, they'd see him coming a mile away. And that's half the battle with reading is seeing patterns in text before you're on top of them. So for all those reasons, I guess, which half, how will you make that call? I would try to get more up if you can, even if some have to go on the ceiling. And there are some pictures of that as well. You'll see in that posting posters blog from the Secret Stories. I still haven't touched base with her yet to see how that's coming because I don't know if the kids are spending their whole time doing. I don't know if that's a novelty that will wear off or if it's working like a charm. I don't know. I'm interested to find out though. But find a spot. Hopefully Daniel's going to chime back in and tell me what he meant because now he's just got me so curious about the Mommy E. We as well as use several for our writing center, and this is just where I am starting to use them. Please share additional ideas for using the trifolds. The trifolds look like this. And again, that blog post, Amy and Tara both, and also too, there's an Orton Gillingham post on there. But if you go to the Secret Stories website, secretstories.com, look at the last 2 blog posts, the most recent ones, and you're going to see a ton of uses for those Portapics that I just held up. Basically, they're just all of the secrets on a trifold visual, and they come in class sets of like 25. They end up being about $2. I think they're like $2.40 a piece, maybe. And Amy and Tara both show a lot of different ways that you can use them and ways that you can play with them. I know some teachers even cut them apart and use them for other things, but they're take-home references, they're individualized student references, they're game-based references. Melissa Snyder, I know, before we did the bingo, she used to use those for all of her small group activity game, like again, building that visual acuity to recognize patterns fast, who could point to the ones first. It's kind of a fun game that you can play along with, and I'm still putting this post together, those phonics games. You can find the secret lives on the phonics games. There's 2 of them, but I'm going to put it into a post so that's written out and laid out more cleanly for you as well. Really, the world's your oyster with those. But I think if you look at those 2 blog posts, and then I think the biggest reason that they're of use, at least when they were created, was for home use. You know, kids are going to read and write at home, and that time's valuable. And the more they read and write, the better they read and write. So we want kids to not be without the tools that they rely on throughout the day. And we want parents not to always just tell them how to spell a word, tell them how to read a word. We want parents to say, I don't know, do you see a secret in that word? I don't know. Oh, well, you're trying to spell what word? You're trying to spell how? Ow? I don't know. Do you hear the ow sound? Do you see any of those up there that look like they're going, ow? See any pictures that look like that sound's coming out? So whether it's for spelling or for reading, we want kids to have that same access to tools. So home use is a key use for those Portapics. Departmentalized, kids that have to go off to speech or pull out if they don't have access to posters in their rooms. And then things you see in the blog posts, the last 2 blog posts that Tara and Amy shared as different ways they use them will be useful. And then the Orton Gillingham post as well, because I think she also highlighted them in there and how she pulls kids to work with those. One kid picked a secret and told the story to his partner and then put a counter on it. Then the other did it and put a color counter on it if they couldn't tell the story. Oh, yeah. And those are a lot of those. And I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, I'm assuming, Stacy, that you saw the games lives. If you didn't see the games lives, the 2 lives that were about these games, watch those, because they are just filled with ways to play and use those Portapics. And they go fast, and you'll see lots of back and forth in the chats, but that's got just tons of ideas that you can use. I just got one today, actually, and it was using posters, but and I haven't posted it yet, but it was about actually it was sent a while ago. I just got to it, but it was where kids are drawing the secret, that they picking a secret that they want, then they have to draw it, and you could use the Portapics for this, or if you have a spare set of posters, and then they have to draw it, and then they have to turn it over, and they have to try to write 10 words that have that secret in it, and then they can either, and this was interesting, they can not only read them to their neighbor, but Miss Settle was telling me that she actually has them seesaw it. So they video it. They get to like video themselves reading the words that they came up with while they show their secret picture. And it was really neat. So I'll post that on Facebook, but there's you can catch a little guy's OR secret and words. And this little guy, I think, read at a level C, or he was on a level C reader. He was level C reader. But one of the words he wrote was ignore. And that's really awesome that he could read it and he could write it. And then, of course, these other words. And you're going to see him doing it because he's recording it for his seesaw. And then you can also see his really good illustration of it. And kids get to do that. They do 5-minute draws. So those are just all kinds of fun ideas that you can use those for. Or you can just do that with an extra set, like a set of posters too, because she happened to be using posters to do that. And they did it in partners or in small groups. For him, they worked in pairs. The whole board was covered. The high kids had to write a word using the secret with a dry erase marker on it. Yeah, I love that. There's so many good ideas in the chat after this is all done. I'm going to miss all these now too. But when you teach the Better Alphabet song, you could use the alphabet without pictures. I have this was the big thing. Yeah, I wanted to get to. Okay, I have certain pictures. First of all, this is a good question. When you teach the alphabet, can you put the alphabet, can you use it with any pictures? I have to use certain pictures to go with our reading program. My question first would be why? Like, what's the goal of the game with those pictures? Not that I care, because I mean, I don't care what pictures you use. I just grabbed some for the one that I made, other than that they're correct pictures, because that's the thing. So first of all, my question would be, are they the correct sound cues? For instance, is there for the O, the ah and the O sound? You don't want an oyster or an orange. You definitely don't want a xylophone for the X, or even an X-ray, because X is going to say X most of the time. So for the C, does it show the S and the K sound? So let's assume all those answers are yes. Let's assume it's a solid reading program that doesn't put an X-ray or a xylophone on your X. I'm going to guess, though, it doesn't put the sounds of Y on your Y card. It probably just has the Y sound and not the E and the I. only because that would be unheard of, that it just doesn't happen. And so all of that to say, let's assume though, forget about the why even for just a minute. Let's assume all things are equal. Why would it, this is where you almost want to say, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because if it's just program fidelity for program's sake, the goal of the program is to get those letter sounds fast. So, and to get as many of them as you can. So just the why alone, you could argue or justify with your principal, say, I want them to know every single possible sound an individual letter can make, not just one. So if I have a way to do that, why would I want to hold that back? So that would be number one. Number two is, since the visuals are, for the most part, they don't matter as long as, like I said, those criterion are met, then you almost have to wonder why is it something that we would have to worry about use? I mean, I get with a program that your district wants to see checks and balances of use, and you can put the secrets under anything. So of course, at the end of the day, you could do the Better Alphabet song. As a matter of fact, I always say, use whatever your alphabet train is, just make sure you put the Secret Stories posters over their respective counterparts. So maybe that's actually what you meant. And if it is, I apologize. But if you're talking about actually substituting those out, I would just kind of think about why you're doing what you're doing and what's the goal of the game. The goal of the game probably isn't for them to be proficient with those particular pictures. Just like for Secret Stories, it's not so they can be proficient with the circus and the cat that I happen to stick up on the C. So the goal of the game is grab those sounds so kids can transfer those to reading and writing. And because some of those Better Alphabet pictures, like the Sneaky Y or like the superhero vowels, they give kids that high leverage phonics concept access, they're going to get the whole picture for each of those individual letter sounds. And that is critical to them being able to apply it for reading and writing, which is critical to it solidifying and actually taking hold and becoming owned. If they only have the scratched surface knowledge of what a typical, let's say, letter song or Phonics letter song or whatever might be, then that's just this little piece. But if we can get more than that, if we can go deeper than that, and not just that, but do it in less than in 1/8 of the time, we always want to take the course that's fastest. If there were a faster way to do the alphabet sounds that were faster than Better Alphabet, I'd say do that. If there were, it's always just about, I guess, the goal of the game. What are you trying to do, and why are you trying to do it? And that will dictate what you need to do it with. So if your principal dictates what you need to do it with, and that's the thing, then keep your pictures up there, but make sure that you put, if you have them, the secret posters above their counterparts in the alphabet so that kids can look at the E and see both sounds. They can look at the Y and see those sounds. They can see the QU and know that sound. That's going to at least flesh out everything a letter can do by itself. It doesn't really matter what the pictures are that they're looking at. And I always even say, use your alphabet chain as long as it makes sense and you put those counterparts above it. But it was just interesting because you said the program, and that is part of, I think, just that bigger picture of, if I know what I'm trying to do, then I can better decide what to do it with because I know where I'm trying to get with it. And all this kind of leads back to another thing that I wanted to hit, which was a question, and it actually generated a lot of excitement. And so I wanted to hit it because I didn't bring it up. It came up in the chats, and it makes perfect sense that we would think that this would be great. But actually, I saw some big problems with it. Not really big problems, but possible issues with it. And that was flashing the alphabet letters on a screen with the Better Alphabet song. Now, the reason that I would have concern about it, and I don't really, if you're doing that separately or in addition to anchoring it on the wall, then that's probably fine. But here's the thing. When tools flash, they go away. They come and they go, and they come and they go, and they come and they go, which means they don't live there permanently. When kids are singing the Better Alphabet song, it's probably because I'm assuming the only reason you're going to sing it is if kids need to know the letter sounds. Otherwise, why would you bother? Because again, it's always based on, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that dictates what I do it with. So the only reason you'd be singing the Better Alphabet song isn't because the program said so, but because your kids are still working on the letter sounds. If they're still working on the letter sounds, what the letters look like and what they say, then kids need to know where those letters live. Because when you're not with them and they go to grab the L or the D or the K or the P and they don't remember how to write it, and that's a big deal in the early grade levels. They might know what it says because they can sing it, but then they have to look up there to see how to write it. And if half of your practice time is not focused on visiting it where it lives, but it's being flashed on a screen, then that cuts in half the amount of awareness they have to know where to find it right up there. You don't want kids to have to search and seek and look and spend time to find, the hammer or the drill or the wrench. You want it to be in the exact drawer that it always is. They can find it with their eyes closed and their hands tied behind their back. So I always like to say reference skills where they live. Always, even if you've got, let's say, the placards, those little flashcards, and you're doing a whole group, but you're using manipulatives. Always reference it, or have a kid go reference it, point to it where it lives on the wall, because your flashcard's not going to be in your hand at the minute that little guy needs that tool. And the same thing with those letter sounds. So you can maybe do a flash game with the letters for like the letter runs. For the abacadabra, like I saw one teacher that had a great idea. She said she divvies out all the individual letters to different kids. So when she does the letter runs, because I always say like change the tune, change the pace, change the direction. But what she does is they sing it in whatever order the kids are standing when they have the letters in their hands. And I thought that's the coolest thing. So if, let's say, you give them all a card, it has a letter on it, they mix themselves around and they stand in a line. So let's say your line says like BLKRTSJ, YMTQ. That's how it's sung. So it gets sung, and again, keep in mind the letter run is not teaching them individual letters and sounds. The letter run is mimicking, decoding, and encoding. See the letter, make the sound. See the letter, make the sound. See the letter, make the sound. It's a super fast way to do what text does to them, which is have to see the symbol, make the sound in an instant. So the more we can mix that up and mimic real text, the better. And in real text, words are not in alphabetical order. But it, at, sit. It's see the letter, make the sound. See the letter, make the sound. So I love that idea of the kids mixing themselves up and then singing the letter run to whatever the mix order is as they work their way down the line. I do that in a different way with the letter run. We'll do, abacadabra, and I'll go switch long. And they'll go, I-jaka, aluna, switch, reverse. And then they have to go backward or forward. Miss Mac did Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Let It Go with the tune for the better alphabet, just to keep it out of that autopilot zone and keep kids having to think on their feet like they have to when they're decoding new words. So that was a really neat idea. And all of this to say, with the flash on a screen, or, like I said, if you have a program that has a letter chart, make sure that you're getting the goal out of it, which is what you're doing it for. Kids' ability to know everything about those individual letters and sounds. And if there's a sound that letter can make when it's by itself, you want to hit every single one that is. So Y doesn't just say Y, it can say E and it can say I. It can't say A by itself because that's E-Y, A-Y, and they're just too cool. And that takes another letter. It takes the E or the A with it. But by itself, Y can say all three of those things. So if your program has all three of those things, great. If it doesn't, then again, Y, it's not hitting the goal of the game. So maybe use the two in tandem if you have a principal that just wants it there, for whatever reason. And sometimes you have to do things like that as teachers. You do what you have to do, to pull out tools and whip up something that your kids need. But it's always easy to figure out if you just ask, why am I doing what I'm doing? And is this going to get me there? Or is this actually going to get me over here and I'm trying to go over there? So, and it's hard to ask ourselves that, I think, when we're used to being told what to do all the time. Okay, let's see. Natalie, I use a regular alphabet with pictures for the better alphabet, but then I did, and by the way, and regular alphabet is great. I actually say you do not need to buy the vertical alphabet that is on the Secret Stories website because it's just a digital download. If it were critical, it would be in the kit. You do not need to buy it. You just need to make sure that whatever you are using has the proper cues, no xylophone, no x-ray, no orange or oyster for O. And then you also want to make sure that if you have the Secret Story cards, that they're hung above those counterparts for the vowels, for Sneaky Y, and for QU, so that you can maximize everything those letters can do by themselves. Those letters, that's what I did. I mean, at the time, I didn't have a better alphabet, TPT, whatever that download thing is. So I just used my regular alphabet train. I took the letters off that were wrong. I got some old pieces from old alphabet trains that I refused to throw away because I'm a hoarder. And I replaced the wrong letters with those. And then I put my Secret Story, the vowels, the QU and Sneaky Y right above. And that's fine. But just make sure that those cues aren't sending kids off on a wild goose chase. When you teach better alphabet, you can use the alphabet with any picture. Oh, that's the same one. Okay. And that was the part of your question that threw me about, is where it says I have to use certain pictures to go with the reading program. Why? Like what about those pictures? Is it just because It just is. It just does. You just have to. Or maybe there's something about those pictures that's, really interesting and necessary that gets them farther and further. Also on that note, really quickly, one of the questions that was asked that I wanted to make sure I mentioned is she said, a teacher said, my kids prefer sparkly E to Mommy E. Now that's fine. The only things that you need to know about when it comes to what trick is the best trick, because you will come up with, and teachers have, many of them are right here in this forum, better ideas than I have, that I've learned from you and added on and extended. So I do not own the best ideas at all. And it's a constant work in progress. But there are some things to keep in mind. And this teacher said, they really like sparkly E because they can like sprinkle the glitter on her, and then they sprinkle themselves with glitter. And then when we see her, sometimes we'll shine flashlights on the glitter. Okay, but again, why am I doing what I'm doing? Where am I trying to go with it? And what's going to get me there? Anytime you can put meaning where there wouldn't be, you're in good shape. So you're always better than nothing if you can give kids something to sink their teeth in. And certainly sparkly E is better than just talking about silent E with long and short vowels. But there's good, better, best with brain-based teaching. And best is when you don't have to teach something new. Sparkly E holds no social emotional currency. Kids do not experience things sparkling at them in real life. Or if they do, they're not compelled to follow a particular direction, like saying their name or do what they're told. And it isn't based on whether something's sparkling farther or near that's going to dictate their decision. So you'd have to explain to them why when something sparkles, that's going to make a vowel say its name, because that's a very arbitrary leap. And for some kids, you could have to explain that a lot. As a matter of fact, you might explain that so much that you might forget what the word is they're actually trying to read that's making you tell this trick to start with. Every kid knows what they have to do when mom's there. When your mom's there and she's close enough to get a hold of you, by darn it, you're going to do what you should, which in this case is say your name. And if mom is not there, so if the word hate has no E at the end, well, that word becomes at, because if mom's not there, you don't have to stand up tall and straight and do what you should. Now, if mom is there, by darn it, you're going to do whatever you would do if your mom were close enough to get you. Or let's take it up a notch, because this is another powerful piece that, again, you can't tap into with just a magic E or a sparkly E because it doesn't have the social emotional core. If mommy's there, but she's 2 letters away, like in the word butter or bitter, she can yell and scream all she wants. Her arms are only 1.5 inches long, so she can't reach over the head of both of those 2 letters to get a hold of that U and make him say his name. And that's why the word butter is butter and not buter, which is what it would be if I were 1 letter away from you. So if you want to turn butter into buter, just take out a T. And that helps kids understand why they can't spell butter, B-U-T-E-R. Not because you're going to just say to them, oh, you need another T for no logical reason. You're going to say, do you want that U to stand up tall and straight and say its name? Because that's what it's going to do. If mommy is 1 letter away, you know what mommy is going to make that U say. If you don't want that U to have to stand up tall and straight and say his name, you're going to have to move mommy farther away so that you doesn't have to listen. That makes sense. The other piece of that core idea is that mommy's got to get out of the house, and sometimes she just can't take it anymore. So she'll put a babysitter in charge. So guys, if you see any vowel that's 1 letter away from another vowel, that's just the babysitter. It's doing just what mom would if she were there. It's telling that vowel that's 1 letter away, you say your name. So words like motor, words like hibernate, words that are multisyllabic, where it's not always a nice, neat little E at the end, and kids still need to know which way do I go with that vowel, long or short? What are my best betting odds for Las Vegas? Now, you can't do that with a sparkly E. And yet the only reason we would teach a sparkly E is so kids can read and kids can spell. So why don't we give them a tool that's A, easier to remember because they already know it before you taught it. B, it can be used instantly to actually read the word at hand, because you don't want to get lost in teaching a skill and then not remember what the word was you were trying to read that you taught it for. You always want to grab it and go, grab it and go, grab the tool and go, grab the tool and go. So secrets should be fast, quick, and right to the point, very lean. Not a big long to do with Alligator Annie and Apple Fred and all these crazy stories. Super fast explanation to get the sound that you need to read the word. And ideally always going back toward social emotional experiences that kids already understand, what drives their behavior every single day. And that way you take that step out of the dance. So there's no learning curve. It's immediate transfer to reading and to writing because they already understand what you're explaining. It's already what makes them tick. So I wouldn't say don't use sparkly E. I would just say, if you think through that formula of, well, why am I doing this? What is the goal of this? And if this is my goal, what's the best tool to use to accomplish that goal? And again, if the goal is to be able to read and write words and know the trigger to make a vowel long or short, What words? Just words that end with an E, all words, any vowel, and then do I want to teach the story or do I want to teach the word? So if I can give them a secret quick and I don't have to spend a week trying to keep explaining about sparkly stuff, then we get to just jump right in and read the word. So I don't know if that maybe is too much to try to make it make sense, but it's a running theme of the whole kind of focus of tonight, which is why am I doing this? What is it for? What's the best way for me to really get there and not just do what we're told? We might have to do what we're told to a point in terms of having things up that we're supposed to have until the gains are seen, but at least you can always go for the shortest route. Always take the fastest path to get where it is you're trying to go. And usually you're trying to build a reader, build a writer, read this word, write that word. Usually we have a very direct objective. Just clear up one thing about the drawing station. Set a timer for 5 to 7 minutes or they will draw forever. Yeah. Thank you, Tara. That's a really good point. Yeah. I think I mentioned 5 minutes, but I didn't say the timer. So yeah, timer would be key. Off to the game. Yeah, no problem. I understand completely. I just want to make sure I don't leave anybody that was nice enough to come and ask a question without the answer. Okay. So I think I'm ready working my way down here. Anyway, they picked 10 words, copy to a friend. Tara's already explaining that. The little boy reads on a C. Okay, perfect. Tara's already got that all covered. What Seesaw, you can see what Seesaw is with the link that is in the blog that I was mentioning that's on the Secret Stories website, or go to Tara's blog. Tara has an amazing blog, especially if you're teaching really any reading series. But if you're a first grade teacher and if you happen to be teaching journeys, then you're going to be in heaven because she really lays out everything that she does and makes it just, she just lays it out like a roadmap with the secrets infused. And with links to the tools that she uses and the games that she does and just everything. So that's just like a Disney World, I think, for first grade teachers. And that's settle on in. You'll find a link to that blog in the blog that I'm talking about, which is Tara's post on the Secret Stories blog, which if you go to Secret Stories website, click on the blog tab, you will see Tara's post. It's the second one in. Amy's is the first one. And Amy's really sums up a lot of the stuff that we're talking about tonight as well. So, but you'll see the links for that in there. Look it up and you will be amazed. Great accountability for station work and more. They can read a story to me while I'm with other students. Yeah. He'll explain in the email. Okay, well, better be during the Super Bowl then. Do you have to be a teacher to use Seesaw? Can a parent use it? And I'll let Tara deal with that. Or like I said, Seesaw, you'll see the links. I'm sure they probably have all that. Oh, she already said it. Yep, they have an app for parents. Okay, on that note, I'm going to let everybody go. I can't thank you enough for being here. And just thank you. What I think I'm going to do is for the download because I do want to do a freebie giveaway tonight. So it is the 3rd of February, which always makes this tricky. And as of now, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. I cannot let Amy Mitchell win again. And right now she would be the 3rd one. So what I will do is I'm going to wait just a little bit for this to close out, and then I will stop the thing. And when it stops, whatever's third up from the bottom, we'll take, or maybe I'll even do it third down from the top. So how about this to find out? Let's do that. That'll make it better. Let's do third down from the top because that way it will, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Miss Settle. That's like one hair better than as if it were Amy. But that's okay because that's really good. And if I know Tara, she probably has already pinpointed somebody who needs it. So anyway, so I'm going to say Tara's the winner then for tonight. And if I worked my way up from the bottom, Tara, I think you were still third up from then there too. So I guess it was destiny. And I'm also going to post a link to that free bingo again, because I would like to go ahead and give anybody that didn't get a chance to download that before one more chance. So I'm going to make it free for the next hour. And I'm sorry if I lost anybody before I announced this. I didn't think about it, but I'm going to go ahead and put that on Teacher Pay Teacher. So you can find a link to the Teacher Pay Teacher site on the Secret Story website. At the very bottom of the products page is a digital products page. And if you go click on that link, it'll take you to TPT. And then when you're on my little site, bingo, I think is the first one. Or if you type in Secret Stories bingo, it'll pop up. So that'll be free up until 8 o'clock. And thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I was trying to figure out how long to keep these up. So I'll keep them up as long as they're of use to you. It's just secrets are so easy to toss out that I don't want to make them more complicated than they are. But I think you guys offer the most incredible ways to hone things to just make it bigger, better, and stronger. So thanks so much. Happy Sunday. Have a great Super Bowl. And I will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.